CuePilot, tool for live TV shows and events. It's an interesting and fascinating app, and we are extremely fortunate today because CuePilot is going to tell us a little bit about. We'd like to welcome Danny Hodgetts to the show. He's the Development Manager from CuePilot, and he's going to talk about their approach to keeping live events on track. For anybody in the watching this who has to do live events, you understand that organization is life and death in these things. And the more you know about what is going to happen next, the better off you are in terms of putting out a high-quality show. So, Danny, great to have you here. Welcome to Office Hours.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Thanks for having me, too.
It's a pleasure. I was reading the kind of synopsis here, and the aim is to bring camera directing to the same technological level as audio and lighting with cloud-based collaboration, real-time update, and communication. This all sounds fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about the CuePilot process?
Yeah, essentially, as you say, we took a look at how live events and broadcasting is produced, particularly multi-camera broadcasting, live events, and there's really the cameras are lagging so far behind the rest of the departments, the lighting, audio. These things, they have digital timeline based tools, and cameras are still done on pen and paper. And we're just trying to bring that into the same level as everything else.
And is it? I saw from reading through that it's integrated into all parts of the production process. Can you talk about how CuePilot works? Perhaps let's start with pre-show prep and getting ready to do something. How does it work?
Yeah, well, maybe should I start a presentation?
Oh, you got a demo? Excellent. Let's dive into the demo.
It's not really the demo as yet, but it's just a little presentation just to give you some background and to kind of go through the questions that you probably already got on your mind. So
perfect. I see it's up. You're in good shape.
Perfect. So, I mean, a lot of your users might already, or viewers might already know what CuePilot is, but for those that don't, the question is what is CuePilot, right?
Yeah, that's basically what we're looking for.
Yeah, and so CuePilot is essentially it's a tool for live multi-camera productions, mainly musical, but anywhere where there's a kind of planned choreography, then CuePilot works really well. So just in terms of the slide, what slide are you seeing here? Because
we're seeing CuePilot. I see your cursor coming across the front, so it's doing the share correctly, but it looks like it's not advancing for you.
Yeah, let's just try that again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is really a run of show kind of management idea. Is that what we're kind of looking at?
Yeah, essentially, it's first of all, it's a scripting tool.
Okay.
So, like I said, the way that scripting is done is generally on pen and paper, and what we're trying to do is digitize the process. And because you digitize it, you can make it collaborative. You can work on it from different locations. It's all backed up and stored in the cloud. So it makes that whole process a lot more streamlined and more efficient.
So you can write your script, and are we talking about we're not talking about a narrative script so much as a run of show style script, or does it actually do like talent lines and the rest of that? Does it manage everything?
It's mainly just for music. So it's just for those musical segments of the show. But okay. But in essence, once you have those musical segments, CuePilot is really useful for helping that workflow. So I'm going to try and reshare my screen again. Let's see if this works this time. Fingers crossed, hey? Right. And
there we go. We're seeing the multicolored rainbow front page with CuePilot on there.
Yeah.
There we go. Now it's advancing. Great.
So, so what is CuePilot? We've gone through this, but again, this slide is always really powerful, I think, because you can see the other tools that are around for these kind of productions. Music have tools like Pro Tools for lighting, Grand MA. These are kind of timeline-based digital tools. And then you look at camera scripts, and they come up like this. Scribbles on pen and paper that needs to be reprinted, and
that looks pretty real world there.
and I think a lot of your users could maybe recognize this if they do multi-camera scripting. But
it's not quite messy enough for most of the ones I've seen. But other than that,
yeah, that's right. You can read some of the words on this. But
somebody has decent handwriting. I've never seen that.
So we just thought this feels so old-fashioned. And we asked ourselves, there must be a better way. And that's why we came up with CuePilot. So CuePilot is a digital, timeline-based multi-camera scripting tool. Just to quickly go through our history about where it came from, because I think that's important. We are a Danish company. Our founder is a multi-camera director himself. And he directed a lot of the talent shows that were around in Denmark at the time. So the X Factors, the Got Talent. And he was looking at those scripts. The script I showed you before was actually one of his old ones. And just thought that this isn't the right way to do it. And that's why he invented CuePilot. And it was developed over the years. The first version was launched in 2010. On the X Factor Denmark show, which is what is being shown here, and it quickly developed from a tool that the director would use themselves just for scripting to a whole production tool. And you see here that there's paper shot lists on the left, but there's also a digital shot list for camera operators, and that's kind of where it's developing to. It's a tool that the director can use to plan, but then can be able to communicate that plan to the whole production and keep everybody in sync.
So do I understand that on that return monitor, we were seeing the CuePilot rundown, and it probably just ratchets so that everybody in the whole multi-camera production thing stays in time with what's expected, what's coming up, what's just happened?
That's exactly right, yes. And it's all synced to a main server which runs CuePilot, and then everything else kind of runs off that, so it's all in time. Well, I'll show you some examples of that in a second. But Eurovision 2014 was the first time this kind of came to the public knowledge outside of Denmark. Per, the founder, he was the director of the Eurovision Song Contest in 2014. And after that, people started to notice and started to wonder, how can I use this in my own productions? And then
that's a big production. I know a lot of people in the U.S. Are aware of Eurovision Song Contest. There's probably some people who are watching who are not. It is a huge, huge undertaking. It's been going for 30 years or something like that. It's a gigantic
60, yeah, like
60 years,
nearly over 60 years, I think.
Wow.
It's become a real institution in Europe. And it's such a complex show that CuePilot was kind of really comes into its own there. You have so many inputs, you have a lot of time for rehearsal as well, and every performance is choreographed down to the frame sometimes. So it is a real tool that is useful on that, and that's kind of the flagship show that we've worked on. But you can see there's lots of other examples here, and it's not just these entertainment formats, but anything where there's a planned choreography, stage show, multi-cameras, so award shows, opening ceremonies, live concerts, some of the examples of the concerts we've worked on. And then obviously Eurovision, like I mentioned, was this is the control room from Liverpool in 2023. I'm
always fond of that because it gave the world ABBA. So we wouldn't have Dancing Queen without that.
Yeah, and many other many
other top acts.
Just to quickly jump into the workflow, because you were asking how it is how this is done. You would typically sit with a laptop in the planning stage. The director would sit there with some kind of piece of choreography or some reference, maybe it might just be the song, and put it into the timeline, and then they can move that along, add cameras, add descriptions, move it along a little bit more, add another description, and so on. And so you start to build out the show by watching or using this like your frame of reference.
That's
and
pretty
then,
clever. So you're using the rehearsal to actually, the director is using that and envisioning, okay, at this point in this number, we need to ISO on the two dancers on the left or whatever, and can put that camera cue into the run of show.
So they would normally sit there with a video of this playing somewhere that's been recorded on an iPhone or something and sent over by the choreographer, and then using your paper script, start breaking the music down and then adding lyrics and so on. What CuePilot allows you to do is to do all that in the same location, and be able to scrub back and forth along the timeline, adding your shots, making your edits based on what you're seeing in the video. So it makes that whole planning process really, really kind of straightforward and collaborative, like I'm about to jump into. Is cloud-based, so everything is stored and backed up on the cloud. No more lost papers or missing sheets or whatever. Everything is stored on the cloud.
You set your coffee on the time code I needed. I've never heard that before.
That's right. That's right. Somebody's the printer run out of ink or something like that.
Not just said it.
But because it's cloud-based, it's a really collaborative tool as well. If you think of like a Google document or something where you have one version stored in a cloud and everybody has access to it and they can make edits in real time and other people can see those edits happening, that's how CuePilot works. It's super collaborative tool. You can work on it in multiple locations, and have everybody from the team adding their input. Of course, you don't want to be able to have access to edit everything. So your director wants to make sure that the cameras are in their domain and nobody else has rights to edit that. So you can restrict who has edit rights to what. And this is particularly important on big projects where you have a lot of people having a lot of input. You can just restrict who has that user right to be able to mess around with my camera. So you don't.
Oh, come on. You want the boom operator to be able to change the run of show, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely not. So we make sure that that's something that doesn't happen, just by giving these access rights. And there's rights for everything that you can edit in CuePilot, so you can really keep control over the project. And then during the production phase, an instance of CuePilot will sit in the control room or gallery, wherever it's being operated, really. And that kind of is the master that runs the show. So from there, you would have timecode input if your show's following timecode, and then it can do other things as well. Like we mentioned before, the application for camera operators. So this runs on just an iPad or an iPhone. Application that is linked to the main server and then follows in sync. And I'll show you an example of this shortly, but what that means is that the cameras are now following a real-time in-sync digital timeline that's personalized for their own shots. So again, you're not having sheets of paper next to your camera and that you're having to flip through and find out where you are in the song. This will keep you in track the whole way and show you, count down exactly when your shots are coming, what you need to do, and when you need to reposition. Yeah.
Normally, we try to get audience questions in as quick as possible. We've just got a couple here, so can you hang on for a second and let's get our viewers involved a little bit. Jason, give us our first question.
Sure. Dave Troutman in Edmonton, Canada writes in, regarding the kinds of things we do here with live, does CuePilot work well with the widely located crew on the different time zones type configuration?
Yeah, how do you manage global stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. We have had instances where somebody's been able to direct a show from the other side of the world by having a VPN access to the main CuePilot server in there. But in terms of the collaboration, that's exactly what it's designed for. You can be able to work on the same project from wherever you are in the world. on different time zones. And whenever you make an edit, it's updated for everybody. And you can see who made those edits, so you can track the changes and so on. But the idea is that, you can make these, have this collaborative project from wherever you are in the world. And this was really handy during COVID, when you had to restrict the number of people you could have in venues at a particular time. You could just happily sit at home with a glass of wine and plan your show with CuePilot with everybody else doing the same thing. So it's certainly a collaborative tool that way, yes.
Excellent. Let's do a couple more questions. Next one.
Sure. Bo Cordell writes in from Charleston, South Carolina. Does CuePilot actually send API commands to switchers and tape machines to automate the playback of the script?
Yes, that's one of the features that CuePilot does, and is my next point. So it's a very good question.
Okay, cool.
So it's all kind of production dependent. A lot of people still prefer to use a person to manually operate the switcher, which is absolutely fine. And they can use CuePilot as their reference for that. But if they wanted to automate the switcher, they can do, and that's one of the things that we can control. And for big shows like Eurovision, that's completely automated. But a lot of the other examples I showed were still using a manual or a person who would do the switching. But it's really interesting to use this for cases where there's maybe a lot going on. So maybe there's you're triggering different macros, you're cutting multiple MEs, there's cuts that are super quick that you would find really difficult to do manually. There's a lot of instances where being able to automate the switcher is it makes that part of the show. So but like I stress, it is one of just a feature, and you can take it or leave it.
Now let's go through a couple more of your images, and we'll come back to the next set of questions.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of what else CuePilot can control is the vision switcher. We can also send commands over OSC, so anything that can receive an OSC command, CuePilot can send a trigger to that. How these all work is CuePilot sends a command to do something. You don't actually program anything into CuePilot. CuePilot is more of a do this now application. So everything would be programmed on that. So if you're triggering graphics or something like that via OSC, that's still all done on the media server, but CuePilot just tells the media server to play. And then we can control PTZ cameras for your US audience. Again, CuePilot is telling them to recall a certain preset or recall a certain trace movement at a particular time. But the benefit is, because it's placed exactly on the timeline, you know that trigger or that movement is going to happen exactly when you want it to. And we can control video recorders. And this is quite really handy for rehearsals. So you would record your rehearsal, and that would go back into the CuePilot timeline in sync with where it played during the rehearsal. And so, like when you started, you maybe had a piece of choreography. Now you have a rehearsal recording in there as well, and you can use that as your reference now to be able to make any edits or changes based on what your previous rehearsal was. And this is a tool that we find really useful for live productions where you don't maybe have a lot of time for rehearsals. If you've got 20 minutes on stage with an artist, and you can have a viewing of that recording instantly in your timeline, it helps speed up that whole process of in between rehearsal stages where everybody's stood around doing nothing. So that's a feature that's really popular.
Nice. And
then just CuePilot in the control room, in the gallery. You can have some hardware from us. We can provide a monitor, or you can use your own, and you can use that to control CuePilot. But there's also what we call Q screens, and these are outputs that you can put on a monitor wall or anywhere else over SDI to be able to see like a countdown view, for example, like this one is. So this one is really useful for ADs, and it shows a countdown of not just the cameras, but everything else that's happening. So there might be a pyro or a stage cue or something that you might want to count down. This would be able to show you that. There's a teleprompter, which is just based on you add lyrics to the song, and then CuePilot brings those lyrics up in time with the music, the same way that a teleprompter would. This is really useful for artists who forget their lyrics.
Nah, it never happens.
No, of course. Yeah.
Of course not.
At least they'll never admit it. But
they don't admit there are teleprompters.
yeah, they use our teleprompter, so they never had to admit it. So it's all good. There's a small overlay which we can put in. This is useful for the recordings that I was mentioning, which can just show current camera, shot number, time code. And this is really good for reviewing. You can just see exactly what camera it was at that particular time. And then also a block of cameras which shows their shots, but not individualized. It's for a group of cameras. And this is something that you could, again, send over the return feed for the cameras so that they can see their incoming shots. And then, but if you do take the application version, then this would be sat next to your viewfinder, like in the image, and then it shows a countdown of your shots. And you see this example, there's two views. There's the top view, which is all cameras, and then there's the bottom view, which is specifically for camera 2. And you see the countdown bar counting you in. That now you've got 6, 5, 4, and then you know that the shot is a group zoom in. It glows red, you're on air. Off air to reposition, back on air. So it makes it really visual to see exactly when your shots are coming up, what you need to do, and how long you've got to reposition until your next shot. So what we find is, and this is because this is all synced with the main server, and all this is running in time, that it's a super visual way of helping the camera operators get the exact shot that they need.
I'm curious if this cuts down on some of the comms chatter, because if you know exactly how long your shot is live and know you can release that shot to go to the next thing because you're off, do camera operators get kind of used to this as opposed to that constant stream of cues in their headphones?
A lot of the time, the camera operators choose to listen to whatever they want to listen to. So an AD would still be calling the shots generally.
Sure.
And still be giving the instructions, but maybe there's just it's not as loud or as frantic or whatever, and you can just focus on this. We also have a countdown in this application as well, which you can use to listen to. But a lot of cameras tend to still listen to the AD, just to help keep them in track. And then, so to just summarize where we came from. The application can just run on a laptop, is used to plan the show in advance. You have the server, which sits in the control room and runs CuePilot, and you have the Cue app for the camera operators to be able to view their shots. And the result is something like this. So just to explain what's happening here, you've got the main video, the broadcast output in the top left. You have the director's view in the bottom left, with the shots coming in here, and you can see it there. This is the playhead. When the playhead reaches that's when the take happens. And then you also have the Cue app view on the right-hand side. This is a performance from Eurovision in Liverpool. This is the UK performance at Eurovision, not Liverpool, the one before that, which was Turin. Sorry.
So this is used all over the world, wherever these huge shows travel to. And obviously with Eurovision, it's different places constantly.
Yeah. Eurovision travels around. It changes country depending on who the winner is. And so every year we work with a new broadcaster to introduce CuePilot, train their team up and show them how it works. And which is always a fun process.
So let's get to our questions again. Next question, Jason.
Alex 4D Gullner in London, UK writes in, does CuePilot generate a shot or a show caller script with standbys? Can the director change their plan during a song, say there's a camera problem, which will change the show caller script?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the real-time changing, you can scroll ahead in the timeline and make a change if you wanted to change a camera that was coming up. It's not generally done, but it's possible. But if there is something that goes wrong, which is bound to happen in live productions, as you know, you have to be able to react. And so CuePilot has some inbuilt fail-safes where you can hold a camera, you can skip a camera, you can take camera early. But you can also, the way that we recommend it being operated is that CuePilot would control an ME row, while the program row is still free to use. And if you need to override the timeline, you can do it any time by just taking the shots on the program row. We realize you have to be able to react, and so you can change the script. You're not kind of stuck to it. And I'll actually, a lot of the time, our directors like to go off script because there's always those moments that you can't plan for. You know, the audience, you can't plan that somebody's going to have a great reaction to something in the audience. But what you can do is focus on those moments, knowing that the timeline that you've planned with CuePilot is taking care of itself. So it helps you to be a little bit more spontaneous sometimes.
Yeah, if you know what's coming up, you know you have a minute here, and if you get that great audience reaction shot, the director can cut to that, knowing exactly how much time they have for that shot before they come up with maybe a key cue.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And this is particularly the case for, you know, these entertainment shows where they have judges or they have audience, you know, family members in the audience or whatever, and you want to be able to capture their reactions, but you don't know when they're going to happen. So you focus on those and you go, okay, there's a great thing happening now. Let's just override the scripts and then we can jump back in. And then also a lot of directors plan for audience moments. We did a thing with Taylor Swift where there's the audience always react to a certain point of the song, and so they scripted that to cameras to get somebody fun in the audience to do that, and then they chose which one they took at the time. So it doesn't stifle that reactivity and that kind of creativity there. If anything, it helps it.
Sure, the happy accidents that make live.
Exactly.
Or sometimes not happy accidents, but that tell the story of the show. Let's get to our next question.
Yeah, it reminds me of the push the button if you've ever seen Above and Beyond live. Same idea. Douglas Carmichael writes in, could CuePilot control PTZ cameras if they are used on a show?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have various PTZ cameras that we can control. If it can use a Visca or a HTTP protocol, we can control it. And this is really handy for a lot of shows. Like we've done a lot of classical music where they have a lot of PTZ cameras kind of positioned in places where a manned camera couldn't go. So right in the center of an orchestra, for example, and CuePilot can trigger those movements or those shots at any point in the timeline. And obviously the benefit of that is on these kind of shows, sometimes, you know, the run is 60, 80 minutes. And in that time, you'll have hundreds of these camera presets, which make it difficult to remember and recall at the particular time. There's non-issue with that with CuePilot. You put it into the timeline, you put the preset that you want, and it recalls it. So, it's one of the features that we're definitely seeing a lot of demand for, and a lot of people are enjoying.
Let's talk about scale for a second. Obviously, if you're doing things like Eurovision and Taylor Swift concerts and things like that, this is beautiful for large, highly complex shows with tons of cues, multiple cameras, and a very complex arrangement in the back end. Is there kind of a lower limit where, this is probably not the right tool? How small does it scale for people who don't have those kind of budgets or needs?
Well, I mean, if you just want to use it as a scripting tool, that's perfectly doable as well. And actually, it's a free. The software is free to use in that instance.
Really? That's interesting. So you can get a runtime kind of version of it and learn how it all works?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's a free version on the website. We call it a solo project. It just means that it's not synced to the cloud, but you can do everything else with it in terms of scripting. So you can build a timeline, and you can even print off that. So you can build a timeline and print paper shot lists if you want. Obviously, we want people to use the application, but we realize that it's not in everybody's budget to have tons of iPads for everybody. And so if you just wanted to use it as a scripting tool, and a lot of our customers do, then you can do, and that's very easy and accessible for everybody.
I would imagine that there's all sorts of ranges in terms of costs of getting involved in this. If you want to come a little bit outside of the free range to test it out and see what happens, kind of where did things begin? How small a system can somebody run CuePilot on?
Well, we have a lot of customers who have 3 cameras and a Blackmagic ATEM switcher console, and that's enough for them, and they can use that to flick between those 3 cameras and get that. I mean, the main thing is that people want to get this same workflow as they do.
Right.
Even on the very high-end productions, the workflow is exactly the same. Maybe they just have more cameras and a lot more people and everything like that. But we find a lot of like places of worship, for example, use volunteers, and they have 3 cameras and a small system, but they can still get the benefits of using CuePilot because they can plan all their shots, they can script everything, they can then communicate that with the team, whether that's printing or whether that's with a couple of iPads that they've brought in themselves. So, you don't have to get everything from us. The system runs on a laptop. It's just software that runs on a laptop. You can rent a server from us, but, at its core, it's just the software. And so if you have a MacBook and you have a small ATEM or something like that, then you can use CuePilot. And then obviously it goes all the way up to the super high-end shows with 3 OB trucks like they had at Eurovision and
sure.
30 cameras and
that rarefied sky's the limit for budget.
Exactly. Yeah, we do all scales.
What is the interface? Just basically an Ethernet off into whatever system? I'm not sure I would trust something like a show on Wi-Fi, but how does it talk to the world?
The application is native, so you download it and it plays off your laptop, and then if you are offline, it doesn't matter, it works just as well. If you make any changes, obviously they would need to be synced, but you can run the whole show completely offline on your laptop. Obviously, we don't want to rely on Wi-Fi in those kind of environments. So
sure,
yeah. So it just runs natively.
Perfect. Let's go to the next question.
Alex 4D Golner in London, UK writes in, can building set lighting models be loaded into CuePilot to storyboard camera moves in a 3D virtual space, including simulated video on location-based screens?
So a lot of our customers use like a complicated previs engine to build the show out, and then they can import that into CuePilot and then use that as their reference. So it
reads stuff like Unreal files or stuff like that?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
And the stuff that you can do with Unreal now is amazing, and you can build out the whole visualization of the arena with lights and with the graphics and the movements of the artists, and then plug that as a video file into CuePilot, and then there's your reference, and that makes it really nice for the directors to sit there and not just imagine, but see the venue and how that's all going to lay out, and then that helps them really get their cameras exactly what they want.
Yeah, I imagine Alex should be very excited with this, all the stuff he does with photogrammetry and checking out locations ahead of time. Somebody would probably come up with lots of libraries of the big concert halls or concert layouts and let you work them in. That's pretty exciting. Let's go to the next question.
Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania writes in, CuePilot seems very capable with many features built into the latest offering. What types of tools does it replace, and what tools does it interface to collaborate?
There you go. We're just talking about Unreal, so what else?
Yeah, I mean, the main tool that it replaces is this, right? Pen and paper. Honestly, that's the main thing that we come up against is people scripting in that traditional method that I showed you earlier, and then having to make that jump from there to a digital tool is quite a step for some, but that's generally what we're trying to do. We're trying to move the process forward from paper scripting to a digital format, and then in terms of what else it's replacing, it's not really replacing anything. It's just making the whole process a lot more streamlined and efficient and collaborative and secure and easy to do. That's generally what we're trying to do. Was the question also about what can it automate as well?
Yeah, what can it replace and what does it interface with to collaborate?
So the integrations with the various switcher models, various PTZ cameras, with graphics engines like Disguise and media servers, we can interface with a lot of these things, and then just help to kind of coordinate them all at the right time. So we don't, we're not trying to replace any switcher models because they're already very far advanced. We're not trying to replace lighting because they're already far advanced. What we're replacing is the paper scripts, and then sitting in the middle and being able to coordinate all of the other parts of the process.
Here's kind of a weird question. What does CuePilot do that I wouldn't expect it to do if I had never used it? Is there any little feature or thing like that somebody said, oh man, it's so nice because I hated doing this before, and now that I'm in CuePilot, it's easier to do?
Almost everything, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even printing, let's say at the very basic level, if you were to go in and print, you have to make sure that all of the highlighted bits that you've done are all typed up, and all of the scribbles that you've made are legible. You can just go in and press print in CuePilot, choose your template, and away you go. So I think the whole process is easier, and in terms of things that would surprise you, everybody who's used it is surprised at just how easy it is.
You kind of went in the area of documentation. So the show is done. We've finished the show. How do you back up things to an archive? Is everything backed up that's in the system? And then next year when the gig comes around again, you can pull that back. What's the storage and reload schema like?
Yeah, so a project is open for a set period of time, which which is what you pay for, and then once that period expires, the project is still viewable, but you just can't make any edits to it. So, but you can go in and view it and see what you did at any time. But let's say if the same show came around again, you could always we can just reopen the project and it's all there. So it's everything that you do, all the media that you upload, if you choose to upload it, is stored in our clouds. The project is stored in the cloud, so that everything is backed up and accessible. So we haven't got to a stage where we've deleted anything yet without request.
Cool. All right. So you build on
Is it
your
worth me
former
showing
work.
this software at all, or do you want me
Yes,
to?
please.
Sure. Go for it.
Yeah, because I just showed the demo before, right? So
Yeah. Let's dive into it and actually see how it works in real time.
right, so let's do this.
And you're up.
Okay, so we have the timeline, and you see I've already put in a piece of media here. And
Yeah, I
you
see a
can
bunch of
scroll
dancers
along.
on an open stage, and I see your audio timeline.
Yeah, so when you import that, it gives you a waveform that helps you to see where you are. Then you can start to add your cameras. And you see I've labeled the cameras here, so you can have a name, either what the camera is or who's operating it. Just, again, a way of helping you understand very quickly what that camera is. So let's say we start with this one, and this is your wide, for example. And then you scroll along the timeline a little bit more, and then at this point you want to put camera 3 in, give it a short description, scroll a bit more, and you can just add cameras as you wish.
And obviously, they look like just cuts on an NLE timeline, so you're just cutting between cameras. So
That's right,
basically a
yeah.
multicam switcher.
And then when you go back along and you review, you can then choose, all right, I want this camera to come in at this point. I didn't like this one. I want this to be camera 6 instead. And so it makes it really easy to make those adjustments to the timeline once you've put the cameras in. You can add lyrics as well. So all you just need to do is find a lyrics file, and then you just copy paste that in, and then put in the first line, and then you can adjust that as you will. And so you're going along and listening, putting that in, then adding the next line if you want to. But like everything, you go along and you can move the cues around. So if the lyrics actually come in here, and then stretch that bit or contract that bit. So again, you're just putting these as your reference into the timeline for where the lyrics are. And then there's a whole host of other tracks which some of your viewers were talking about. So you can put vision effects in. This is just giving an effect to the switcher, so you can send a macro, key on, off, emem. Again, it's just telling the switcher to do that particular macro at that particular time. Other things you can have notify. This is really useful for other parts of the production. So, like I said, it's not just a camera tool. It can be a tool to help Pyro know where they need to be. And you can change the flag depending on what you want that to be. So a good one for Pyro could be fire. And then you can scroll along and you know that there's some fireworks at this point. And they last for this amount of time. And then you'll get a countdown for when that's coming in, so that your AD can see, like, 3, 2, 1, boom, go the fireworks.
They cut my Pyro budget. Can you shorten that by half?
But then it's exactly. And then as the director, you might go, okay, well, we want to make sure that we've got a good wide shot on there, so we'll go to our wide just as the fireworks hit. And it helps you get all of those things in sync with each other. OSC, again, that's for different.
We're pretty familiar with Zoom OSC around here.
All right, we have some inbuilt schemas. So essentially, if you want to play a video from the skies or do any of these commands, they're already in there for ease, and they just send that command to the disguise server to do that at that time. You can also have generic OSC if we don't have a schema already here, and there you just type in the string of what you want for example. So, and this is just connected over IP. So CuePilot sits in the middle and is able to operate all of these things. We also have things like REST API for graphics, MIDI, and different other things like feedback. So feedback is one where if you, like we mentioned right at the beginning, you want to restrict access to people, you can restrict everybody apart from being able to give feedback. And then you can just give feedback on the timeline.
Oh, and notes will pop up as to
and then as the director, you can just scroll through. Oh, Danny loved this. That's great. And you've read that, and it disappears. So it's just a way of other people being able to comment without being able to edit or change anything.
Yeah, great. So the A2 can come in and say, "Here's a note."
Exactly.
It gets dealt with.
Yeah, it's handy for choreographers, for example, where they want some input, but they can just see exactly where they want to put it on the timeline. If I showed you one of the other examples that we had for previs before, we were talking about that. So if I just bring up this media, I see there's a lot of media in this one. But yeah, I don't have an example actually. But this is where it would be. This is where your media comes in, and you can see that there's a lot of either uploaded media or
video, audio,
media.
Graphics, things like that. Any kind of digitized media can be dragged in.
That's right. Yeah. So use like an MP4 file or something like that. But like I say, we also have the ability to if you have a hyperdeck, for example, you can record directly onto the hyperdeck and then have that sync back into the CuePilot timeline to be in sync with where you with where you want it to be.
Yeah, with all the LED walls out there, I'm sure that's used a lot. Background content and moving lights and all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just a good way of getting the communication across departments into one kind of consolidated place.
Nice. Let's go to our next question.
Our own Courtney Gooden from Hollywood, California writes in, are there safety considerations if CuePilot is triggering things like stage movement, pyro, trapdoors, scenery, winches, etc.? Does a stage manager have to indicate everything is safe in order to go on to the next cue?
Interesting question.
It's a good question, but the answer is that CuePilot doesn't really trigger those things. Like pyro, it would never really. In real world, you'd do that. You would put a note on the timeline for somebody else to do it.
Yeah, that's the safety fallback. Somebody's judgment saying there's nobody over the line of pyro, so we're okay.
What it does do is control switches, graphics, media servers, PTZ cameras, that kind of thing. I don't think you would want it to control like winches or anything that was kind of essentially dangerous.
If you were doing a comedy, it'd be really funny. At this point, the door randomly opens.
But what you can do is you can put a lot of these flags on the timeline for different departments to, if I bring up the Eurovision one, for different departments that they can, they know what they need to be doing at particular times. So, for example, you have staging. Here you have, send in a certain artist at a certain time and so on. So they put these flags on the timeline for things to tell somebody to do something. It's like the communication side of it rather than the automation side of it, if that makes sense.
Totally. There's just so many people involved in a complex. So the stage manager has to know what's going on. Obviously, the director and all that. There's just a lot of people that need to be kept up to date as to what's happening right now, what's coming. Particularly when you're talking about a 90-minute show. At what time do we alert the act in the green room that they have 10 minutes and they've got to get themselves together?
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a really good way of helping coordinate all of that.
Perfect sense. Next question.
Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania writes in, what was the inspiration that informed your UI and UX? There seems to be a mix of familiar callbacks to traditional show flow, but also reimagined functionality.
Yeah, it's a good question because we know that a lot of people who are familiar with post-production editing tools will be familiar with this kind of UI. And it was designed to kind of mimic a lot of that, in the sense that, you have one linear timeline where you can then place cues on that timeline depending on where in time that needs to be. But it was also designed with the thought in mind that people who are generally using this, like TV directors, and this is not to disparage anybody in this, that they're more creative than technical, and so it needs to be very intuitive, easy to use, easy to pick up. You don't need a thesis to be able to operate CuePilot. You can just
telling me there's no 500-page manual for this?
No. There's a couple of help pages and videos on our website, but you don't really need anything that complex. So that's the idea that it was in mind. It was to kind of, like I said, bring it in line with other tools that are based on linear timelines, but with a bit more color and a bit more logic to how these things work.
Well, and just from my cursory look at it, the color communicates really well. If I'm involved in the purple block, all I have to do is keep my eyes open for that coming up, and I know exactly how far away my next mission critical thing is. So, yeah. Next question.
Alex 40 Goldner in London, UK writes in, can you switch from timecode based on timing in case the drummer decides to extend the drum solo?
Why did you pick on drummers for the person responsible for keeping time? Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I move to the on-air view, you can have options to follow timecode, which is what these are. But you can also have what we call step mode. Step mode is like a semi-automatic way of operating CuePilot. You still operate it manually, but when it gets to the next cue, it'll stop and wait for you to then press. So you can take, but then if something's not ready, you can hold it. And this was designed mainly for classical music, actually. But
interesting.
But productions where you're not following time code, and also you don't know if the artist or the performance is going to adjust the tempo, add extra segments, do a big drum solo in the middle. This is live after all. You sometimes need to react. So a lot of the shows that are kind of very strict, the pop shows, the talent shows, they can just run to time code and be fine. But we have the other options to be able to work without time code. And you can also just play the timeline, but speed it up or slow it down depending on where you need to be. So this, if you just want to do a quick adjustment, you can do, or you can run off this step mode.
In my experience, there's nothing more variable than the amount of time spent between a host on a talent show going, and the winner is, and when they actually say the name of the winner. It could be anywhere from 3 seconds to 27.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on how engaged the audience is. Fun. Next question.
JJ McKenna in Santa Benicia, California writes in, is NDI PTZ control supported?
Not at the moment. It's we're working our way through the various models, but generally the ones we see that are used the most, the Sony Visca or like Panasonic based anything on HTTP. So we're working our way through those other protocols, but that's what we do at the moment.
Nice. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana writes in, can I lock the shot numbering and go to a 23A and 23B once the crew has learned the numbered sequence?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. So once you've got your sequence down, your timeline down, then you go to generate shot numbers. That gives every shot a shot number, but you don't want to change that like your listeners.
Yeah, you don't want to ripple through the whole thing and get everybody off.
Exactly. So at that point, then you add another camera in here, but then you just give it. Where are we? 2. So you give it a 2A at this point, and then it just adds it there. Or if you took this one away, it doesn't automatically update everything else after it because your cameras have learnt those shots, so it just removes it.
Then they add another one, and you have to do 2A alt.
Yeah, or 2B.
2B alt.
Yeah. If you do too many changes and you've stuck with A's and B's everywhere that you don't want, you can always just regenerate the shot numbers again. You can clear them however you want. But yeah, that's how we would operate it.
Seems perfectly flexible. Next question.
Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania writes in, can you talk about the graphics integrations in CuePilot?
Okay. Yeah, so this would be the OSC integrations, and you see we have a bunch of inbuilt schemas here for like Disguise and Notch and other graphics engines. But if you didn't have anything, if they're not here, you can also have the generic one, which I showed you before, where you just write the string. So in theory, if you can receive an OSC command, CuePilot can control it. But we have some, for example, Disguise, like I think I showed before. If we open that, you can see that there is a bunch of inbuilt commands here, just to make it easier for you to put them on the timeline and be able to control that engine. But in terms of the other side, they still need to be prepared and everything on those servers ready to go, ready for CuePilot to recall them.
I think we have one more question. We're getting close.
Sure do. Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana writes in, does it talk OSC? And would it send and receive commands and triggers to and from QLab?
Yeah, so OSC, we've just discussed that again. In terms of the schemas, I don't think we have QLab. Oh, yeah, we do there. So if I just add a QLab one to the timeline, I'll add another OSC track, but we choose QLab. And then you can see the list of commands if we put a Q in there. Like I said, it just sends the Q number. So you'd have to program that on the other side, but CuePilot can then send that command to play that at a particular time.
Perfect. Danny, thank you so much for coming in and helping us understand this. If people want to get more information about it or investigate, bring it into their operation, what's their next step? Who do they contact? How do they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so if you go to the website, CuePilot.com, there's a lot of information there about how to access the system. There's a download where you can download the free version, and then from there you can upgrade to the paid versions if you want to. From there, we also have video tutorials and other ways of helping you to understand and work with the software. And if you want to find out about what our latest productions are and who's using it and how our social media channels are the best, they're all CuePilot.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking your time to bring our audience up to speed on what looks like a fabulous tool. I mean, if it's okay for doing those gigantic shows, I think most of us can find a way to make it work. So thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's great. Thank yous also go out to our standard 3 constituencies who make the show possible every day, to our producers, the people who add the questions into the question queue and drive the show because of that. Thank you guys and girls and men and women and everything in between. Thank you so much for being a part of office hours every day and making this happen. To our back-end crew who are amazing and gather together on this volunteer basis every single day. We've been doing it for 1,600 plus days without a miss since the beginning of the pandemic, and we'll hope to keep doing it longer. And to everybody who makes this possible for us every day, just back-end crew, producers, and our panelists, everybody working together to spread as much knowledge as we can. Thank you, thank you, and thank you. Our Tulloch Traversal today, we have traveled 61,000 miles. If we had to go to the people who brought these questions into us and say hi to them and get their responses or the questions in person, 99,000 kilometers, that is 485 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks a lot, Danny. That was great. It reminds me of, like, you know, I'm picturing like this cartoon octopus with all these different, you know, stopwatches and, like, you know, okay, it's yours. Ready? Go, go, go.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it works. So sorry about the screen share thing at the beginning.
Don't worry about it. We'll edit it out or figure out. I don't think anything took too long. I think, you know, this is live broadcast and the information
only
is
felt like
there.
a long time because it was on the spot. No, I think to the audience it'll be just fine.
Yeah, it was all working a second ago and then it stops. But hey, that's like live. Like
it's live,
as they say. That's right. It's not just that if anything go wrong,
call it a drum solo and you're good. All right.
That's
well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank
you so much for inviting me, and I'd love to come back if there's opportunity.
Please. Well, we'd love to do that. Let's keep in touch. And if you got another product or something else